But the coin that I added to the portfolio today is called vEmpire.
And they are the largest decentralized metaverse investment organization in the world.
Hello, everybody. What a lovely day it is. Let you kick off, and I'll do some button tapping in the background. You know what comes after Ethereum and Qcoin? When Binance. Hello, everybody. I didn't realize how dodgy my old camera was until I was watching that back, and I was all pixelated. Can't have been as dodgy as the signal we had on top of the walkie-talkie building in London. If you watched mine and Jake Gaines' podcast, tell you what, Americans are built different. I was sitting there, we had about 40 people on this balcony doing a live podcast, everyone staring. I had to keep my eyes fixed to the screen, just the British embarrassment in me. I just couldn't do it. Luckily, I wasn't with B Roots, or he would have been attracting even more attention, I'm sure, especially with those dodgy sunglasses. But we've got today, I feel like I always say, an interesting guest, but then again, we wouldn't really have a boring one, would we? So we've got QuickNode, and nodes are something that people don't really understand that much. They are essential to blockchain, in fact, in both keeping it decentralized or, in fact, centralized, depending on their placement. So yeah, very keen to hear a bit more on that. So if we could bring Anthony out.
Hello, how's it going?
Very good. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, I was saying very little understood, however, massively important area of blockchain nodes. And I'll let you touch a bit more on that as we get in, if you'd introduce yourself and the company.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Anthony Campolo, and I am a developer advocate for QuickNode. And QuickNode, as you've been saying, is a company that runs the nodes, so you don't have to. And the calling us a node provider can be a little bit confusing because we don't actually give you like a dedicated node. We give you access to like the sum total of our platform with like a global API. So we can kind of get into the distinction of what that means exactly. But yeah, I am someone who creates content, and I go out and do podcast interviews such as this one to help explain the company and what we do and our mission and how we fit into the larger Web3 ecosystem. So really happy to be here and get a chance to talk about what we do.
Good stuff. Seems like a good job going out and talking to people. And again, I guess it depends on the type of person who you're speaking with, but hopefully everyone's nice and friendly. Always like to check everyone's background on how they actually got into blockchain and crypto as an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about kind of how I got into coding itself. I have a bit of an interesting background. I was originally a music teacher before I got involved in all of this tech stuff, and had a tough time making a living doing that, and eventually kind of found my way into like the whole coding bootcamp world. And so I learned just regular old web development like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And as I got into that, I ended up getting involved in some open source frameworks, one in particular called Redwood.js, which is a really interesting full stack kind of Ruby on Rails inspired framework from the creator of GitHub, Tom Preston Warner. And that was kind of my entry point into like the entire world of open source and how you contribute to projects and things like that. And then I started working at a GraphQL company called StepZen. And so I wasn't really doing Web3 stuff at all. I was just doing Web2 development and learning like, you know, what is a front end, what is a back end, what's a database, how does all that stuff kind of connect together. And I really enjoyed it. But in the background, I had gotten involved in Web3 and kind of blockchain stuff quite a while ago. It was before I knew how to code at all. It was around 2017 when like the first like big ICO boom happened. And I just found it to be really fascinating. And I found it to be really interesting to just like kind of think about like what like the concept of like money being like a digital asset that's like decoupled from like a fiat currency. It was something that I just never really thought about before. And I started reading about the history and learning about like the cypherpunks and Cryptonomicon and this whole history of crypto. And it was like really enticing to me and really interesting. And at the time I was like, dirt broke and could barely buy any Ethereum at all. I managed to buy like a couple $100 worth that I thought I had lost and then found recently and ended up making like 10 grand off of. So that was pretty cool. But the kind of journey of me actually getting involved in it professionally goes back just 6 months now to a friend of mine, Noah Hine. He was working at QuickNode and he was like, no, I know you're really interested in this stuff. And like at this point, you're kind of established and you're a developer advocate. And we're like looking for developer advocates. We're building out a DevRel team. So I joined around April of this year, and I've been doing it ever since and going out and doing stuff like this and kind of immersing myself more in like the developer side of Web3 and learning about the infrastructure and how to create smart contracts and how to create dApps. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
And for those who aren't in depth with the industry and like terminology, what is a simple way to describe a developer advocate?
Yeah, sure. So there's some controversy over what exactly a developer advocate does, but the way I describe it is that it sits at the intersection between community, content, and product. So you have the product, which in this case is QuickNode, could be whatever your company's product is. And then you have a group of people who are using that product, that is the community. And then you have content that is hopefully going to explain this product to that community and give them resources so that they could go further and build more and have a sense of like what the platform is capable of. So a developer advocate can sit at the intersection of all three of those. And some will lean more heavily towards like community management, like some more time kind of like organizing a Discord and getting like that all set up and roles and permissions and alerts. And some people may spend more time creating content and creating videos and guides. And some people may spend more time like getting product feedback and even working on the product itself. So it's a fairly cross-functional role. And it's good for people who like to do a million things and can never decide what they want to do. So I tend to sit more in the content area. But I also think that to do the job successfully, you really have to touch all of those areas, because if you aren't talking to the community, you won't know what content to create. And if you're not touching the product, you also won't know what content to create. And if you're not working a little bit on the content, then you won't know how to explain things to the community. So they all kind of interrelate to each other, even though developer advocate tends to sit more heavily in one area or the other. It's kind of like the whole pie, which makes up the job.
Fair enough. And I got to ask, since you mentioned you're a music teacher before, was that music teacher as a teaching the subject of music, or was there a particular instrument?
That's a good question. So I taught a couple different things. I got like a classical education. So like I learned how to play the upright bass with like the bow and everything. And that was like my main instrument. And I also did jazz. And during the summer, I would work for a summer camp and work with kids in like a rock band format. So that was actually what I enjoyed the most and I found worked the best, is that if you can get kids together and have them learn like pop songs, like songs they actually know and songs that are simple, they'll enjoy it a lot more than if you like try and get them to play like Mozart, And I found that that was actually the best way to teach, because then they would have something that was easy enough to learn in the span of like a week, but then still give them the ability to like perform something really fun. And then it's music they know. So that was what I enjoyed teaching the most. But I mean, I did it all. I also did the whole classical thing, and I taught, just hot cross buns and, piano lessons and
did you do
everything.
Did you like chuck the actual, I'm sure there's a different name for it, but chuck the bow out and just do proper like bass slapping, like
pizzicato. Yeah. The bow is hard. Like playing with the bow is one of the most challenging things with like any instrument, because there's like so much fine grained control, and then also you have to be like right on the notes. Whereas if you're doing pizzicato, you feel like kind of flub it a little bit. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy playing classical that much because I kind of came into it late in the game. So I was never that great at playing with the bow, but I really enjoyed playing jazz. That was something I really got down with.
Fair enough. My brother's more the music player. I think he's got bass guitar, but he was always more into classic.
Do you play it all?
No, well, actually, saying that, I always have a joke with my brother that I started doing MMA. He took up like Wing Chun Kung Fu. I started doing jiu-jitsu, then he started doing jiu-jitsu. I started playing guitar, then he started playing guitar.
You're a trendsetter.
Exactly. But I am one of those all or nothing. So once I've got bored, I just stopped doing it. So he actually went on and definitely better guitar player than I ever was. So he could definitely have more of a conversation on that angle. But getting back to QuickNode,
Yeah.
what is a node and what is involved with running a node? I'd like to also know any differences that have been made or that you faced from the merge.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. So let's talk about just what a blockchain is first. So a blockchain is a group of computers that together make up a shared network. And so when I usually explain this to people who've like never heard of it or don't know anything about it, I usually compare it to like BitTorrent, because with BitTorrent you have a peer-to-peer network where there's like not like a single database or a single server somewhere that is the program. It's a protocol of multiple people connecting their computers together, and like those computers synced together is like the network itself, and that is the thing. So you can kind of think of it like a shared BitTorrent like thing for a database, because it's a whole bunch of stuff synced together to save data, but it's very different from a database at the same time. So you don't want to lean too much into the database comparison, because a blockchain is not a database. It's something very different, but it's a shared network of computers that together make up a ledger. So a ledger being, it can just be like, you can think of it as a whole bunch of transactions, like a history of transactions. And this was originally with Bitcoin. It was a way for a bunch of people to have some arbitrary number of things, Bitcoins, on their computer, and those computers synced together would make up the shared state. And when you transacted, when you sent Bitcoin from one computer to another, then all the computers would update together and say, hey, I have $5. Dom has $5. I want to give Dom $1. Now I have $4 and Dom has $6. And everyone would record those transactions and everyone would update together. And so it's a whole bunch of computers synced together. So each of those computers that has that shared state of the world, that is what the node is. So a node is really just like a server out there in the world, or a computer like you and I have running a program. Those programs communicate together over the internet, and then the sum total of all of those computers is what makes up what we call the blockchain. And so the node is really important, because like without the nodes, there is no blockchain. Like that is literally what the thing is. There's a whole bunch of these nodes together communicating, and then their communication is what allows the shared state, and what allows us to transact, and what allows us to build programs and do everything that we do in Web3.
So I presume that people will, well, if a protocol is aiming for full decentralization, and you can touch on this a bit in your support of it, but would they place nodes across multiple? I presume that if everybody gave their nodes just to QuickNode, that wouldn't necessarily be fully decentralized. So do you encourage people to, split them across multiple providers? Or I'm just wondering on that process and how you try and keep projects that want to be anyway decentralized.
Yeah, so this is really important part of blockchain, is that the reason why we want this kind of architecture is because it means that there's no single point of failure, because it's decentralized. So you can't take down a single computer and take down a blockchain, because a blockchain is a whole bunch of computers together. So if you have 10 nodes all over the world, if you take one down, the other 9 keep talking to each other and they keep going. So if all of the nodes were being run by one company, then it's not really a blockchain. It's something more akin to like Amazon. So with Amazon, if Amazon goes down, then it's just down. Like that's it. There's nothing you can do. You wait for Amazon to come back up. So this question of centralization versus decentralization, it's a perennial philosophical discussion around what level of decentralization is necessary. And for QuickNode, like we have our own system, which is itself decentralized. So we run on different clouds. We run some on bare metal. We run some on actual services, like, you know, the equivalent of like EC2 or something like that. And then we also are in multi-region. We run different regions. And then we even run multi-chain. So if you wanted to build a smart contract, you want to build it across multiple chains, you could even do that. And then we have multi-clients. We have different clients. So we're contributing to having not just a single client running for each of these. So in that sense, we do our best to ourselves be decentralized. If you want to go one step further and run nodes on us and another company, then you could decentralize yourself as well. So there's always going to be trade-offs, because if you want to build across multiple different node providers, then you're adding more overhead for yourself, because you have to connect all those together, and you're kind of giving up some of the benefits of having a single unified service that makes things like simple and easy for you. Like, you're introducing more challenges, and it's a question of how much effort do you want to put into making yourself as decentralized as possible. And like for us, we don't want to just like run the whole game. Like, we think it's good and it's healthy for other node providers to be out there. We think that it makes us all better and stronger to compete with each other and to have different options. So we're not trying to like run the whole game, but we are our own system. And if you want to buy into just using us and go into a slightly more centralized direction, then we think you'll get benefits for that, because then you'll be able to buy into our own specific APIs and our own developer tooling. And like, we offer things that make the developer experience nicer if you go all in on us. And then the kind of deal is that we ourselves will do our best to keep our own system decentralized. But the great thing about blockchain is that like, there's always going to be options. There's always going to be other companies out there. There's always going to be other ways to do this. So we don't think that we should be the sum total of all nodes out there. We think that that wouldn't be good for the ecosystem. But we do think that if you want to lean into using a centralized service, that will be there for you. We'll be able to provide support for you. And if you have this crazy multi-service thing that's connecting other things, then we can't really help you when stuff breaks, because we don't know how the other team's stuff works. We only know how our stuff works.
Fair enough. I wonder, because whenever I think of nodes, I think of nodes like validators, miners. What would, and I'd be interested, just I don't know if it's relevant or not, it could just be that area and I'm confusing it, but what would it take for because some, like, maybe it's more miners and validators and node providers obviously make money from, you know, standard miner makes money from being the first to mine the Bitcoin, gets Bitcoin. But that's very different from sort of a node operator. Are there profitable ways to run nodes without contacting the party? For example, to run nodes for Ethereum, does that are you guys able to profit from that without having another human there? Can you decide at like a whim, we're going to start running nodes for X person because it's profitable for us to do so? Or will it only be where you've been contacted, or there's like a human that you can talk to and then you come to an agreement to do it? Or would you ever start running nodes just off of your own back because you think it makes sense as a business?
Sure. And you also asked about the merge, and I'll get to that right after this. So what we do is we partner with the actual teams that are like running any specific chain. So we don't just kind of pick any chain willy-nilly and say, like, we're going to add this tomorrow and then build it in. Like, we have partnerships with each of the chains. So like, we have added within, like, since I've started here, we've added chains like Avalanche and Harmony and Stacks. And for each of those processes, we're working like lockstep with the foundations or with the companies that have created these chains. And we're figuring out basically like, how do we support this and how do we make sure it's as supported as all of our other chains? So that means basically having docs, having all of the methods worked out so that anyone who wants to interact with this, it would be exactly as if they were running their own chain. So that's really the main idea, is that when you pick a chain on QuickNode and you get an endpoint from it, you should be able to interact with that endpoint exactly the way you would if you spun up that node yourself and were running it. So no matter what you want to do, what you want to build on it, you will have access to the exact same API methods that you would have if you were running it yourself. So we always are very careful to work with chains that we think are reputable and that we think are going to be good for our customers, that we think are going to be stable. And that's like a whole process that goes along with like adding a chain. And so you think about like the merge, that was like this huge coordinated effort to upgrade Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. So as that was going on, we were watching like the Ethereum Foundation like core team calls, and we were seeing like, when is the merge going to happen? What's the block number? What's the new clients that we need? What are the test nets that we need to deprecate? There's this like whole list of things that needs to be done. And so we are working with the Ethereum Foundation to make sure that's smooth and that's clear. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen between us and the different foundations. So like adding a chain, it's like, it's not just a simple kind of like turn on a new chain, then you like have a chain. There's like a whole process that goes along with it.
Fair enough. The next one is like a mixture, and a lot of it is, if I say it, people won't sort of understand, but it's a picture of a few things. I've seen that you have different like levels of APIs. You recently also acquired, I don't know if it was another company or another technology, and you guys are building
IC
out
tools. I got that. I got my IC tool shirt on right now.
So there's a good few things. Just so for those who won't know, well, there's a lot of people watching this, so I know won't know what nodes are, let alone the rest of it. But if you could go into like more about your APRs, your tools, and the marketplace you're building, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah, and let me just like define what an API is, because it's something that if you're not a developer could be a little confusing. When you have like a piece of software, the way that you communicate with it is through what's called an API. And API is application programming interface. The actual terminology is not that important, but it's the way that computers talk to each other. So this could be literally just a regular old database, not a blockchain at all. And a database it'll be connected to a server, and that server will expose some sort of API. And you could just like go to a link, like, jasonplaceholder.com. That's an API, and you can get back just blobs of data. And this is the way that all programmers work with these programs, is through APIs. And with every blockchain, there's what's called an RPC API, remote procedure call. And this is how you can interact with the blockchain, and you can send what are called RPC methods, remote procedure call methods. And those are like ETH call. And there are these specific things that expect certain inputs and give certain outputs. And there's like a contract there in terms of what inputs you give and then what outputs are given back. Now, every blockchain has an API, and that API is usually fairly low level. Now, with QuickNode, we have what are called our enhanced APIs, and the enhanced APIs, this is what you get to kind of lean more into like a centralized service, is that we can build higher level APIs on top of these blockchains. So for common things that you're going to do in your applications, like say you want to get the NFTs, like you want to get the NFTs in Vitalik's wallet right now. Like if you wanted to do that, figuring out how to do that will require knowing where are the RPC methods, what is Vitalik's specific wallet address, what is the inputs required to get that response back, and then how are you going to format that response in your own application in whatever programming language you use. Whereas we offer APIs to make it very simple to just ask for like a specific piece of information like that. So we have an NFT API, and we have a token API. And then you had mentioned IC tools. IC tools is a GraphQL API. So what GraphQL is not super important, but as I was saying, I was working at a GraphQL company before I did this. So for me, this was like super exciting that I thought I was like leaving the GraphQL world behind kind of when I came here. And then we immediately bought a company with like a GraphQL API. And I'm like, oh, cool. I know how this works. And it's a very specific like whole language built around APIs. It's a query language for APIs, but all it means is that you can write like even someone who's not a developer can like write a GraphQL query that's just like, I want the trending NFT collections right now, and I want to know their name, and I want to know what is the floor price right now. And then you can get back like the 10 trending NFTs on Ethereum right now and their floor price and their names, and it'll just give you that information. So it's a way to kind of cut through having to know what is the Ethereum RPC method you would need to know to figure that out. And you can just like ask for the specific piece of information you want. So this is really nice for like developer velocity, because we're always building stuff all the time. We're always trying to build, better user interfaces with more functionality that's, more stable and gives the users what they want. So by building these higher level APIs, it allows developers to go further, faster with the resources they have.
Fair enough. And the marketplace.
Yeah, so the marketplace, this is actually a fairly new thing that we have started doing. This just came out within the last week or two. And the marketplace is our chance to even make us more decentralized and more able to support the wider ecosystem, because we're now providing the ability to add in functionality for anyone. Like in the past, as I was saying, we would have to kind of onboard these like chains, and it'd be this long process, and there would only be some chains that we would support. But now with our marketplace, we allow companies to kind of just plug in and build whatever they want. So we're partnering with companies like Crossmint and Flashbots and BlockTorch, and they're offering things like Crossmint has an NFT minting API. So you can create and send NFTs to users, and you can do that with just like a single line of code. Or with BlockTorch, they're an observability platform, so you can get observability into your smart contracts. And then with Flashbots, you can do like kind of a front running or seeing what's happening in terms of you want to make a trade like right away. So with the marketplace, you have this whole range now of different companies that are able to plug into our system and provide this custom functionality. And you'll see this with companies like DigitalOcean or like Vercel, like this whole marketplace kind of idea. It's about taking the sum total of QuickNode's platform and allowing other companies to kind of plug in their own specific functionality and be able to do that even if they're not just like a whole chain. So it allows us to both support the wider ecosystem. It allows other companies to kind of get a piece of what's happening, and then our developers and our users then get access to a much wider array of functionality.
Fair enough. So it might be the same answer to this question, but I mean, I would love to say that this is me when I ask this, but unfortunately, I just would never. I haven't even tried to learn coding because I know for a fact that it just I just wouldn't be able to concentrate enough. I know my brother's looking to and is learning a bit of Solidity for people who are getting started building dApps, smart contracts. Do you guys have a place for those people?
So this is one of the things that really excited me about QuickNode and actually made me really passionate about working here, is that we put a lot of attention and care and resources into just like beginner guides. So if you go to quicknode.com /guides, I believe is what it is, you're going to find a whole you're going to find a whole array of guides for doing a whole bunch of different stuff. So if you think about like, so what I like to talk about is like a hello world smart contract. So you mentioned Solidity. Like let's talk about Solidity for a second. So Solidity is a programming language, but it's a programming language that is native to the blockchain. So a programming language is just a way to kind of specify instructions and logic And like if you think of the simplest program that most people need to learn to write when they're like in their coding bootcamp is FizzBuzz. So FizzBuzz is you need to print out a list of numbers 1 through 15. But when you have numbers that are divisible by 3, you need to say fizz. And when you have numbers that are divisible by 5, you need to say buzz. And when you have numbers that are divisible by 3 and 5, you need to say fizz buzz. So you need to print out 1, 2, fizz, 4, buzz, 6, fizz, 7, 8, fizz buzz. And that's a program. It's like the simplest program you can possibly think of. You can write that program in any programming language you can think of. So with Solidity, or let's say with JavaScript is a programming language built into the browser. So anytime you're like in your browser, like right now, we're both in a browser right now, we're here on StreamYard, and a browser will have JavaScript in it. Like JavaScript right now is what allows us to have this whole video interface that's happening right now as a programming language that's running behind the scenes to create this program that we're using. And with Solidity, it's a programming language for the blockchain. So that means it does the same thing every other programming language does. You can write FizzBuzz in Solidity if you want. But the difference is that it's a program that's written into the blockchain itself. So this means that it's a program that can't be altered and can't be changed once it goes out there, because like the blockchain, it saves transactions. You can't go back and rewrite a transaction. You can't go back and rewrite a program. And this is why you need to be very careful when you write these programs and make sure they're carefully vetted and all that, because if you put a program out and it does something different than what you thought it was going to do, then you're kind of screwed. So you have these like all this ways of like vetting it and like auditing it and stuff. But that's all it is. Like a program is just a series of instructions, and a program on the blockchain is a series of instructions written into the blockchain. So if you wanted to write... Yeah, so simple, right? Yeah. So if you wanted to write a hello world Solidity smart contract, you could find a guide for that on QuickNode. And you could find a guide that will start you off totally from scratch, saying if you have like a blank project, you need to create this file, you need to write this code, you need to run these commands, and it'll walk you through step by step how to do that. And we have a whole technical content team that works on these. And then we have our DevRel team, which includes myself, and we write guides as well. So if you want to get started with this stuff and you have no idea what to do, you've never done any of this before, you can pick whichever chain you're interested in learning, and then you can go look up our guides that are available, and you can find some that will walk you through the process of doing this, even if you're a total beginner and have never done it before. If you've never written any code before, you might still be a little bit confused, but if you like someone who is like a bootcamp student who is maybe like just learning, like someone who's like fresh out of a boot camp, like our guide should be workable and usable for you, because we do try and make it as comprehensible and as like beginner friendly as possible.
Fair enough. Hopefully, I can see my brother's been in the comments, so hopefully he's still watching. He can log in. By the way, everybody, still got a couple of questions left, but make sure that if you do have any questions that come up whilst we're talking, put them in the chat so that I can ask them towards the end. Yeah. Two things. First, when token, and second, where does the community live at the moment? Are you guys Discord? Are you Telegram? Are you just Twitter?
Yeah, we are on Discord. So if you go to QuickNode.com, then you should be able to find a link to our Discord at the very bottom of the page. And we have many channels there if you want to, just kind of meet some people and chit chat and kind of get connected to the industry. You can do that. If you're, looking to get started, like if you, were interested in the guides, you're like, okay, well, that sounds cool, but I don't really know what guide to do. Feel free to hop in the Discord and be like, hey, I'm looking to get started. Can you kind of point me in the right direction? And if you're already using QuickNode and you need help, like, hey, something's broken, I don't know why, then feel free to hop into the Discord. We have a whole support team there ready to help out. And we also have a Twitter as well. So that is just twitter.com/QuickNode. And I do weekly Twitter spaces. So if you're interested in kind of hanging out and listening to some of these conversations, think this is interesting, then we do those every Wednesday. And Yeah, so the community is really cool, and the community aspect of Web3 is one of the things that really draws me to it, because it's about, you know, decentralization. It's about giving power back to the people, not necessarily the platforms. So like, we are here for the community, and we really want to help out. And there's another question there.
Yeah, when token.
When token, yeah. So yeah, I don't see us having a token anytime soon. I think that we want to support as many chains as possible, and so building our own chain is a little bit out of scope right now. I mean, I don't want to say never, but it's definitely not currently something we are discussing. But you know, if the right opportunity comes around, you know, you never know. But I wouldn't hold your breath right now.
Fair enough. Oh, ruined my next token, which was when Binance, but there we go.
Well, we do support Binance Smart Chain, actually, so you can use that.
So when Binance now.
Yeah, there you go. It's already there. It's actually what I'm learning more about right now, and am kind of getting spun up with. And I'll probably be going to one of their like hackathons in October. So excited to dig more into that one.
I've been invited to one in Georgia. I think it's in October. Still need to clear it with the wife. That's always a problem.
What with you? That's what I do.
Yeah. Is there anything, any alpha you can tease? Anything coming up that we should be looking out for?
Yeah. So when you have a system like this, one of the most important things is like alerts, and you know, some of the more like technical terms we'll call like monitoring or observability, because you want to observe what your system is actually doing. If you can't observe what your system's doing, then how are you gonna know when it's broken, or when it's slow, or when it's just not performing how it should be? So we're currently working on something called Quick Alerts, and Quick Alerts is going to be a real-time monitoring system. This is something that my boss right now, Carl, is actually presenting today, I believe. And this is something that's still in the works. It's beta, but we are looking for early beta testers. If you're curious, reach out, and we'd love to give you access to it and get your thoughts on it. But the main thing is that it just gives you the ability to set alerts for all sorts of different stuff. So if you want to know when your chain is slowing down, or you want to know when you're having a spike in traffic, or if you want to know when someone is searching for a particular piece of data, you can create whatever kind of alerts you want. And the idea being that when whatever you set happens, you get an alert. So it's very customizable. It's very much about giving you the ability to monitor whatever it is that is important to you and important to your application, and be able to specify exactly what that is. And so our quick alerts, it's, you know, you can think of, you know, a wide array of different things. Like if you want to see when like gas drops to a certain percentage, if you want to see when you have like an NFT is minted, if you want to see when something hits a certain floor price. So the space of things that you can imagine you could do with this is actually quite wide. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, what we're testing and looking for beta testers to kind of give us some feedback on.
Fair enough. See, I'm getting, I thought I'd got sick of the word gas just with Ethereum, but now being over in Europe, I didn't think I could get more sick of the word gas. And now now every part of my life is talking about gas. We've had a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm very lucky working from home. I barely drive anywhere anymore. So for me, the blockchain gas is the main gas
I'm talking about, rather than gasoline. Yeah. We're talking about what's been blown up from the pipelines coming across from Denmark.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite up on my European news. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Just had Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 blown up under the water by somebody.
I wonder who.
Well, saying that, I don't know. It's Russia's the one asking to convene the Security Council on it. So interesting.
Yeah, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I reckon could easily be a false flag, but there we go. We have had a couple of questions in.
Yeah, awesome.
We've had one, which blockchain is more secure, ETH or Binance? And a follow-up, which I'm not sure makes sense. I guess in terms of scalability, Binance is better, question mark.
So I mean, what do you mean by secure? Like that's you gotta kind of, I think, define your terms a bit more clearly there, because like security is a multifaceted thing. Security is not a binary on or off. Like this is secure, this is not secure. Security is this huge multifaceted, multi-matrix thing of like how decentralized is it? How easy is there a core team of people with multi-sig wallets that control this thing? Is it like what is the underlying like hexadecimal code? Like there's so many questions that go along with security. So I'm not really sure how to answer a question like that. I would say that the longer a chain has been around, the more decentralized it is and the more battle tested it is, it tends to be more secure. So if I'm going to ask like, what is the more secure blockchain? I'm usually going to ask which one has more users, which one has more nodes, which one has been around longer. Because if you think about it, like if anyone could like hack the sum total of Ethereum, that's like the largest bug bounty you could ever imagine. Like that means you get all the money. So if you have a chain that's been around for close to a decade and has, 500 billion, $1 trillion of value locked into it, every day that it is not hacked is proof of its security. So I feel pretty confident that Ethereum is pretty dang secure. Now, Binance is also a very large chain that's been around for a decent amount of time. It's not quite as large as Ethereum. It hasn't been around quite as long, but it's very established. And it's, I would say any of the chains that are running on QuickNode, you could feel pretty secure about, because we only bring on chains. Like we support around like 15 chains right now. And if you go look at coin market cap, there's over 10,000 blockchains out there. So unless you have already been around for a while and you already have a decent amount of users, you're not going to get on QuickNode at all. So I feel pretty confident in the security of all of our chains. If you want to kind of get more granular and say which of these 15 chains we support are more secure than the other, you're going to have to really dig into the question, like, what do you mean by security, and like what security properties specifically are you looking for? Because there's like the security of the chain itself, but there's also the security of the smart contracts you write, because you could have a chain that's very secure, but if it has a programming language built into it that's very buggy and is easy to write error-prone code, then maybe you'll have a dApp that's insecure on top of that chain. So this is why I say, like, just asking, like, is this chain more secure? Like, the question just fundamentally doesn't make sense.
Solana, talking about a buggy coding language with Rust.
Yeah, Solana is an interesting one. And we have one of the largest group of Solana nodes anywhere, possibly the largest. So we're very intimately familiar with Solana and all its quirks, and we make sure it is staying up and running.
Fair enough. Well, if you don't want to take responsibility for that job, I guess that also answers in terms of scalability as well. That's the same answer, right?
So with scalability, this one's a little easier to answer, because it is more of a binary, like, kind of on-off question. There's a question of how much information can go through this blockchain at one point in time. And so you can think of it as transactions, you can think of it as block space, you can pick whatever kind of number you want, but there is going to be a more kind of clear answer to what is more scalable. And like as you're saying, Solana, even though it may go down every now and then, Solana is one of the more scalable blockchains that are around. And then you have newer ones that are more decoupled, like you have Avalanche with their whole subnet thing, and they are also working on being more scalable. But then you also have like Ethereum. The merge didn't necessarily make it more scalable, but it's setting them up to be more scalable, because it's kind of getting them ready for this kind of more roll-up centric world. And we also support layer 2s, like we support Optimism and Arbitrum. And yeah, I think that the great thing about having a multi-chain world like this is that you can decide which properties are more important to you. If you want something that's highly secure, you can do that. If you want something that's going to be more highly scalable, you can do that. And so you can kind of look at the different chains that we offer, and you can compare those different properties and decide what's going to be more important to you.
Fair enough. We've had what benefits would the average person get from running a node? Obviously, it depends on the node, but let's just say Ethereum, for example.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends, like, what does this average person want to get out of, Web3 and blockchain. The thing that we are really beneficial for is for developers who want to build applications. So, if you're someone who's not a developer and you have no interest in coding or creating anything, like a service like AWS wouldn't really be that useful to you, because like AWS gives you the ability to run servers or databases or front ends or any of that kind of stuff. But if you're not someone building applications, you're not someone who's doing that, then you wouldn't really know what to do with any of that stuff. So like we are a dev tools company, and this is really what appealed to me about it, because I love dev tools. I think dev tools are like super cool. And for us, like the quote unquote average person might not get a whole lot of benefit from us. But if you're someone who maybe you just like want to understand how this stuff works, like maybe you're not really that interested in building this whole huge, like you're not interested in building like Uniswap, like you don't want to create like a whole DeFi thing, but you're curious about, like you use Uniswap maybe, and you'd be like, what would it actually take to like build something like this? Like you can go on QuickNode, you can spin up a node, you can check out some of our like DeFi guides, and you can learn how to do that. And like it will cost you $0. We have a free plan. You can spin up a node completely for free, and you can learn how this stuff works. And so if you're like the average person and you're someone who's just like naturally curious and you want to kind of get a better sense of like, where is my money actually going? Like, people put so much money into this stuff and they may have no clue what any of it's doing. So I think that's kind of one benefit that an average person can get, is that they can kind of get a taste of like, what is actually happening under the hood here? What is all this stuff doing? And like, why am I putting my money into this? Why do I believe that this is something that's actually going to be worth money one day? And you can figure out how to create like a very simple dApp and figure out what it means to interact with a node or an endpoint or any of that stuff. And you'll probably be like very confused along the way, but you'll also learn a lot. And this is why I say like our guides are actually like really good and really like well thought out and can be useful for beginners. So like that's something that, if you don't know what any of this stuff means, but you're still like, okay, well, what can I do with this? Like try just creating an account and spinning up a node and like following a guide, just like see what happens. You might be surprised what you learn. You might actually get hooked and all of a sudden become a blockchain developer.
So what you're saying is QuickNode is the crack of Ethereum. It's getting people hooked.
Yeah, it's the gateway drug, yeah, or the stepping stone, if you want a more family-friendly metaphor.
No, not interested in those. We got one here, which is a good one, to be honest. Does QuickNode also provide computing and memory resources, in brackets, platform, to run a node for any chain, or is it just blockchain analytics API and other infra to bootstrap multi-chain dApps quicker?
So we just offer specific chains themselves, if that's kind of what the question is getting. Like you can't just spin up a generic server and run any node you want for any chain. If you wanted to do that, you're looking at more so like using an AWS or a DigitalOcean and just spinning up a server and loading up your own kind of software. With us, you are going to have a bunch of chains to pick from, and you start by picking a chain. That's like the very, very first thing you do is you'll create an account, and then you'll spin up a chain. It'll give you a list of all of our chains, and you'll pick one, and you'll go. So right now, we do not offer just generic server space. I'm not going to say we never will, but as of now, we do not. And offering just kind of like generic server space is really more of the purview of like server companies themselves. So it's a little bit of a different vertical.
Fair enough. So is it like, you mentioned that you only support like 15 blockchains, and if it's with you guys, it's probably not financial advice, but fairly decent enough. So are like node providers like the listings of layer ones? Like, for example, will they announce it as a bullish thing that our blockchain is now on QuickNode? And also like, who are your competitors? So is it like, because I'm imagining like QuickNode are like Binance, and then there's going to be an FTX and a Coinbase and a KuCoin out there. Is that how it works, or am I just making shit up?
No, you're right on the money. I mean, with anything in software, like software itself is such a highly competitive field, and there's always going to be like, for every Amazon, there's a Google and an Azure, going up against them. So for us, almost anyone who gets involved in kind of like dev tooling for blockchain, they'll know about Alchemy, they'll know about Infura. There's a whole host of other ones that people will talk about. And so like I could list off 10 node providers. Honestly, there's a whole bunch. And for us, like that's a really strong signal. That's like actually shows that this is a very healthy ecosystem, that there is a lot of competition. There's a lot of people who have slightly different ideas of how to go about this problem. Traditionally, in the past, you would have providers that would kind of aim for like a certain ecosystem. Like you would have some that would be really heavy into like EVM chains, which are Ethereum compatible chains, because you have Ethereum and then you have chains that kind of are using like Ethereum's virtual machine to kind of bootstrap their chain. So that's traditionally what you'd see. And then, you have like, Solana providers, and they would be completely separate. So our niche is that we offer infrastructure for many different chains, and we're not just saying you have to use this kind of chain. That's going to be the only thing we offer. We try and offer a wide variety of different chains, and any chains that we think are interesting or valuable, we're going to be looking at to kind of onboard. So that's kind of where we're at right now in terms of like where we sit versus the ecosystem. And then obviously we're like highly focused on reliability and availability and performance. And so if you want to look at some of these different providers, you can do like speed comparisons between them. And we think that we do pretty well stacking up against the competition there.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have mentioned it.
That's right.
Another interesting one, which is typical crypto. Is there a way for retail to get exposure if they think you guys will do well? Their exact words were, I feel like QuickNode will be the AWS of blockchain. Is there a way for retail to invest somehow? Token NFT is stock.
So right now, I mean, the best way to invest would be to get a job here. Like right now we're VC backed. We've done a Series A, and we have Andreessen Horowitz is one of our investors, and we have a team of people who've invested in us. And right now, we're not a public company, so you can't invest in us. But if you do, kind of believe in the QuickNode vision, then feel free to just get in touch with us, and you want to see how we can collaborate. We can figure out how we can collaborate. There's no way to like directly invest in us. And as I said previously, there's no QuickNode token yet, so you can't really buy in that way. But, I think that with stuff like that, it can be very risky, and you never really know exactly what you're going to be getting involved in. So we're kind of playing more of like we're a VC company, people have invested in us, and that stuff's all pretty standard. We know what you get. And so for me, like, I work here, and there's investing and all that kind of thing. But unfortunately, there's not really a good way to get exposure to it if you're like kind of outside the company right now, just because how VC works.
Fair enough. Well, you're going to have to wait. That's why I said when tokens. See, I'm asking the right questions here. But no, I mean, yeah, that's great. That's all the questions that we've had from the audience. As always, guys, like and subscribe. You can check out QuickNode at twitter.com/QuickNode. What's the website? Is it again QuickNode.com?
It's QuickNode.com. Yep. And the same with our Twitter. And then you can, from our website, you can find our Discord, and you can find anywhere else that we reside on the internet. We have a YouTube as well. And we even have a Twitch, QuickNode HQ. Every now and then we do some live streams where I kind of build out some examples and do some live coding. So yeah, we have a lot of different places where you can find us, and we would love to get in touch with you. We love to know what you're building, what you're interested in building, and hopefully we can help you out.
Nice one. Perfect. Thanks so much. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are going to reach out. I've even thought of something myself. Let's see how long my attention span can hold to see if I remember to reach out on it. But yeah, thanks so much for joining. And oh, damn. There we go. See, as soon as I wrap up, somebody comes in. Is QuickNode hiring at the moment, by the way? If so, do you hire in the US?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're hiring. So if you go to let's see, QuickNode or jobs.lever.co/QuickNode. You can find our current open positions. We hire all over the world. So I am currently in St. Louis, and we have, people in India, we have people in the UK, we have people all over the place. And we are based in Miami, but we're worldwide. We all work remotely. And yeah, we would love to chat with you. We're hiring across multiple departments, and we're actually, even throughout this kind of downturn, we were still hiring. This is something that made me even more bullish on the company that I'm working for, is that even as the kind of market was tanking, like, we're still going strong, because for us, like, we're selling infrastructure. Like, we're just selling compute space. So even if, like, all the coins are going down, people still need to run these servers. People still need to keep the blockchains running. So we feel like we're pretty anti-fragile in that respect, and we're pretty resilient to these market downturns. So since I started at the company in April, we've almost doubled. So we are growing and we are hiring, and we would love to speak with you if you find this stuff interesting and want to learn more and are curious to work with us.
Good stuff. And I happen to know who sits behind the bear market 2022 survivor mask, of which is their username on YouTube. So I'll sling you a Telegram ID over to him so that he can give you a little pitch.
Yeah, please do. Definitely would love to talk to you, like, genuinely. Yeah.
I've even met him in real life, so can't say that about most people in crypto. But there we go. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for joining, Anthony. Really interesting, and yeah, looks like you might have a new colleague from it. So there we are.
Yeah, thank you, Dom. Thank you for having me. This is a really good time. I always enjoy these conversations.
Nice one. Brilliant. Thanks so much, everybody. See you later.